All right, so what we're looking at is the sun here. On the left side of the screen is the sun. Sunlight is coming in like this. You can see it's kind of like bright here. So that's sunlight coming in. And the earth and the moon are just sitting here. Now, the earth is always half lit by the sun. So half of the earth is always lit by the sun. Half of the moon is also always lit by the sun. Now, before we even go further, let me go over the dark side of the moon. Remember the album The Dark Side of the Moon by Pink Floyd? So that doesn't make any sense at all. There is no such a thing as the dark side of the moon. Both sides of the moon get just as much light. We say the far side of the moon and the side that faces us. So here, the side that faces us is all dark right now. The other side is lit by the sun. So the side that we don't see right now is lit by the sun. Now, I'm going to start playing here. In this position here, we say this is a new moon. So a new moon, basically 0 hours, 0 days. It's like a brand new moon. It's a new cycle. Now the moon orbits the Earth this way, counterclockwise. Now let's see what we're looking at. We're looking at the Earth. We're looking at the moon, both from the North Pole of the Earth-Moon system. So we're above the Earth looking down on the North Pole. So Santa lives here. This is where Santa lives. And the Earth rotates this way, counterclockwise. The moon orbits the Earth counterclockwise, like this. All right. So now there's no moons in the sky right now. This is like 12 noon. The sun is in the south. Let's see the moon come into the picture. Right now there's no moon. That's why it's called the new moon. So as soon as it starts, the moon is traveling around the Earth. And the next day, there's a moon here, but it's a very, very, very thin crescent. Now, I want you to know something, and that is that the moon also has something called horns. There's a horn here on this side. There's a horn here. So there's two horns simultaneously here. All right. Now, what's about the horns is that the horns point away from the sun. Take a look. Like right now, the horn is pointing this way, away from the sun. This horn is pointing away from the sun like that, all right? So let's keep it going. I want you to notice a couple of things. The phase of the moon get bigger and bigger. So now we have more of a phase. This is still a crescent moon. Crescent, same as croissant, you know, sandwich, croissant. That's because it looks like a crescent. So the moon is getting a little bigger and bigger. This is called the waxing phases of the moon. Wax. It's like you wax your car. This is a waxing phase. So the phases of the moon that increase in light are called the waxing phases. And then the phases that are going to be getting smaller and smaller are called the waning phases. All right, so let's take a look. Now, one more thing I want you to see, and that's the distance between the moon and the sun is increasing every day. So the moon and the sun are getting a little farther away from each other. If you look at it from the Earth, there's a little guy on the Earth. When he looks at the sun, he sees the sun and the moon make an angle. So look, this is an angle between the sun and the moon. And that angle is going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. So that's the angle we're looking at, the distance between the sun and the moon, apparently in the sky. Because the sun is 93 million miles away, the moon is only like 230,000 miles away. Much, much closer. All right, so as time goes on, another day, another dollar. Okay, look, it's getting farther and farther now. The moon is going towards the east. Now, why is the sun and the moon rising? They're rising because the Earth is rotating. But now, why is the moon moving farther and farther from the sun? It's because the moon itself is moving in orbit. The moon is moving towards the east. So every day you see the moon, you expect the moon to get farther and farther away from the sun. That means the moon rises later and later and later and later every single day. Again, these are the horns of the moon here. So let's keep the baby going. And after a few days, you can see the crescent is getting a little bigger, a little bigger. You basically have 7 days of crescents, another crescent. And on the 7th day, we should have a quarter moon here. So we have a quarter moon now. Now, we call this a quarter moon because it's a quarter of the moon. This is one quarter. The side that we don't see is the second quarter. The back side is half the moon, right? So this is just a quarter of the moon. We call this the first quarter moon. Now the phases are written here, and this is the current time is like in the afternoon, and it's a 7-day-old moon here. So as time goes on, the moon is going to get even bigger than a quarter moon. I know it looks like a half a moon, but it's really a quarter of the side that we see. So we see two sides. Now it has even more than a quarter. These phases are called gibbous. And as you can see, gibbous also lasts for another 7 days. So the gibbous moon is getting bigger and bigger. We're approaching the full moon now. As we approach the full moon, you notice that when the sun is setting, the moon is starting to rise here. In fact, when we get to the full moon rises, the sun sets. The sun rises, the full moon sets, the opposite. So let's take a look at that real quick. This is going to be a full moon next night. So this is the full moon. The moon is setting, the sun is rising. Full moon is setting, the sun is rising. All right, now, it's getting even farther and farther now. Now it's going to be 7 days of waning gibbous. So these phases are called gibbous. And the gibbous is getting smaller and smaller. These phases are called the waning phases. So you have the new moon, waxing crescents, then we had a first quarter, then waxing gibbous, then the full moon, then waning gibbous, and now we're going to have a last quarter. So let's see the last quarter now. Last quarter should rise at 12 midnight. So here is the last quarter moon. We call it the last quarter or third quarter. Two names, either one is okay. Now, so here now, it's been 21 days. Another 7 days now is going to be where the moon is going to be a waning crescent. I'm going to draw all this in the sky for you so you guys can see it, and especially for those of you who are in the lab class as well. Okay, now look at the crescent again, except the crescent this time is west of the sun. Here's the sun, here's the moon, it's west of the sun. Remember, the moon was on this side, east of the sun before. Now it's west of the sun. That means it rises before the sunrise. So if you want to see this crescent, you have to wake up early in the morning. Let's see what time actually. Let me see what time the moon is going to rise tomorrow morning. It's going to be, there it is, pretty early, right? This is 4:15 in the morning. That's what time you expect to see this crescent moon. That's waning. It's getting smaller and smaller. And pretty soon it's going to be right next to the sun again. It's going to be lined up. Altogether, it's about 29.5 days. Eight days. And now we're going to have a new moon again. So now it's a new moon. So what does that mean, a new moon? It means that it's so close to the sun that only the far side is lit. The side that faces us on the earth is dark, so we don't really see any light from the moon. It's here somewhere, but we just don't see it. So it's probably over here someplace. And most of the time we don't see it covering the sun like an eclipse because it's either below the sun or above the sun. Any questions before I get on the board and draw this whole thing for you in a way that you guys can take notes? Okay, so a couple of things I want you not to forget, please. One thing I don't want you to forget is that the way we're looking at it, we're looking from the sun is on the left side, so the sunlight is coming this way, and then the moon is going around the sun counterclockwise, the opposite direction of the clock. So the second hand of the clock goes this way, the moon is orbiting the earth this way, as seen from the North Pole. So Santa lives here.